So now we come to this session where we had the poll yesterday about specific topics that you raised up front prior to the workshop, and where we said, okay, where is your priority? And if you remember, priority number 1 was OSD, followed by level of involvement, practical examples, and then we had the 2 other topics, CS23 Amendment 5 and cybersecurity. We got several colleagues here to respond. We didn't prepare presentations, and as it's called a workshop, it's an interactive session where we want to get also your feedback because you want to discuss these topics, and we will try to answer best your questions. And I'm grateful that the colleagues made themselves available and will join us here on stage. Just so now it's your chance and the floor is yours to raise the questions, and we start with the topic of OSD. Either by a Slido or take a chance with the microphones. You all voted to want to discuss these topics, and now nobody is going to raise a question. It's quite interesting. Yes, Franz, thanks for asking the first question.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, actually, I raised the question, but it's more a general question. What is the experience of EASA with DOA holders who have the privilege of classifying OSDs? The reason why I'm asking for is OSD is obviously new for all of us, or most of us at least, and reasonable, serious design organizations, of course, have the privilege to classify major, minor, and they may even do minor changes to OSD. However, we are missing, or at least I'm claiming I'm missing a little bit of a feedback from EASA on these minor changes, which we are not used to, or in the past at least. We don't have any experience from the past to work with them. So do you have any replies to us in terms of what are the common problems with OSDs and how to get across them? And maybe a proposal how to involve EASA, although it's a minor change and it's a privilege of an organization, how to submit and get a feedback on an OSD.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for the question. Andrea Boiardi, I'm the Chief Expert, Operational Suitability. Well, to start from the beginning of your question, yes, we are collecting information. We're receiving feedbacks from DOAs through our DOA colleagues. As a matter of fact, we had a session yesterday as a side meeting discussing some of the main issues that have been found so far. We're still in the phase of collecting data, of course, as you know. The OSD became effective from beginning of 2014, but in reality, it was only applicable to changes and STCs from the end of 2016, as we know. So, of course, we're barely 2 years into the process, and we're still in the phase of collected data. However, the main issues that we face, a general one which pops up and for which we've had a lot of discussions in several forums, which is not directly linked to the change itself, is the availability of the data, meaning availability also to STC holders, for example, or STC applicants. and it's something that on which we are collecting feedback. On one hand, we are pushing on TC holders to support as much as possible, however, within the limit of what is written today in Part 21, where there's an obligation to make the data available to persons required to comply with the OSD. So there's a little bit of an ambiguity there. And we are, again, collecting info to see if we need to amend that in future revisions of Part 21. Other issues that we are facing are, of course, the relationship between the change to type design and the consequent change, the impact on the OSD, and how this assessment is made and what are the tools available. We have tried to provide, as a first iteration, as you know, some AMC and guidance material under Part 21 for the different OSD constituents to try and support that. However, obviously, we know that the operational suitability data, by definition, they are pieces of information that do not necessarily fit in terms of methodology and in terms of content, what is the typical type design issues. So, of course, we are collecting information in this sense. We have specified some conventional points under the guidance material in Part 21, which is also generating some concerns for which you're receiving feedbacks here and there. For example, the fact that we have determined, based on the discussions that was held at the time in the rulemaking task, and based on an analysis that was made at the time, the fact that a minor change to the type design can only impact MMEL, and by definition should have an impact on any other OSD constituents. However, we know that in practical terms, this sometimes may or may not be true. So in this sense, we're encouraging DOAs to provide feedbacks to us, first of all, and the message that I have been sending is that obviously if a typical example is a cabin modification or that is classified as minor for design, from the type design point of view. So in principle, the DOA can just say, well, I don't even look at cabin crew data because I'm not required to. However, that change should be highlighted to cabin crew in such a way that it could consider safety relevant. Please go ahead. This is my message. If you feel that that kind of information needs to be vehiculated, because this is the purpose of the OSD in the end, to support, in this case, cabin crew training. So if you feel it needs to be vehiculated, please go ahead, and on a voluntary basis, you can still apply to change or to produce a supplement to the cabin crew data in the specific case. So there's no limitation in doing more, obviously. However, yes, this is one for an example of some of the issues that we are facing. We're facing some issues on the opposite side, when there are some major changes to type design that have an impact on cabin crew data still because of the way CS cabin crew data is designed, while in fact some of you argue that there is no real safety concern. So this is also something for which we are receiving feedbacks and try to investigate on how we can improve the whole system and the certification specifications in the future. We have regular updates to our certification specifications, as you're all aware, and this applies to OSD as well. We just went through a first revision of CS MMEL, which, by the way, is out for public consultation, I believe, for still a little bit less than a week. So feel free to go on our website and provide feedback on that and comments. We have scheduled for next year and into 2020 regular updates of the other OSD CSs. So any feedback that you can provide through your DOA team leaders is obviously more than welcome. Knowing that, again, we are in a learning process here. So it is expected that there are some concerns that may arise from the application of the OSD requirements.
Maybe an additional comment to it. It seems to us that the availability of OSD data is, at least so far, not a real issue for us. We do get hold of them. However, we only get hold of them once we have an order. We cannot look at it prior to actually have the order in-house and before we have a customer actually providing it to us. And that seems to be more of a problem because we don't know to which detail the OSD was developed in the first place.
Yes, I agree with you, and this is, speaking very openly, it's a little bit of a collision between the need, the principles through which the OSD, or based on which the OSD was designed, and obviously proprietary issues related to the propriety of that kind of information. I believe, and I have said this in several forums, this is not simply an issue that applies to OSD, it applies to any piece of paper, if I may say, or to any manual that is associated to the type certificate and which is owned by the TC holder. As a matter of fact, for the OSD, at least we have a provision under Part 21 to force the TC holder to make it available, as we said, to specific users. So we're aware of the issue. We'll try to see if we can address it in a better way. And yes, I know that typically you will get it from your customers, from the operator, typically, rather than from the TC holder.
Okay, we got by now a few questions via Slido. Maybe you can take the first one. I will just read it out. Are OSD FCD mandatory for change with AFM supplement? Is OSD requested to say to the crew to use AFMS to be trained for the new system?
Sorry, which one?
That's
the blue one. Yeah.
The blue one.
Okay, sorry, thanks. Okay. No, not specifically, in the sense that a change to an AFM or the generation of an AFM supplement, of course, as we know, is based on different requirements at the OSD. It typically addresses operating limitations or procedures that do not necessarily need to be replicated under the flight crew data. We have guidance material under Part 21 to try and understand when flight crew data is affected. However, the general principle is that flight crew data contains training provisions, not necessarily procedures that are already in the AFM, unless it is considered, for example, that a specific procedure or a specific function that is installed on an aircraft as a consequence of a change or an STC has to produce a training area of special emphasis because of its peculiarity. Then in this case, it would trigger typically an amendment or a supplement to the flight crew data.
The next one I think is more for Alain. It's about, can a repair temporarily override an MMEL item? For example, to temporarily permit operations after a damage.
Yeah, I'm looking at Rob because probably it's more qualified to answer this. You want to take this one?
Sure, I'll take this one. Well, it's a bit tricky question to ask, I would say. The MMEL is there to provide relief to the operation and provides certain cases in which you can still continue the operation with a certain system in op. A repair takes care of condition on an aircraft where something is broken or not functional, and you restore it to its original function. Whether a repair overrides the MMEL, it's difficult to say. If your repair invalidates an MMEL, I would certainly encourage you to take care of that. Other than that, a repair is not a replacement for an MMEL item, and vice versa. So they're basically two different things that I don't see have that much in common.
So next question is, question and answer for OSD major minor classifications similar as issued for rotorcraft, considered to be created, issued. I'm struggling a little bit to understand the question. Is Fred in the room who produced? Yeah, maybe you can expand a little bit if you're kind enough. Can you get a microphone there, please? Thanks.
Yeah, we discussed that. There's this Q&E for roadcraft is issued to now, where there's guidance on what's minor, major. That's for rotorcraft. So is there something similar foreseen for OSD constituents, so FCD and MMEL?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. No, but actually it could be a good idea. We have some question and answers on our website, which includes considerations on the OSD. Maybe we could expand them. At the moment, as you know, we have guidance material on the classification of changes and how to determine the impact on the OSD of a design change in Part 21. But yeah, we don't have it at the moment. That's the answer. But maybe it's a good idea to start thinking about it.
Just to add on that, the OSD being what it is, the CS looks a bit different. And certainly for certain OSD constituents within the CS, we already find quite a lot of guidance on how to classify a change to OSD. So certainly use that information. We can see if there's still need for further clarification, and frequently asked questions could be a good suggestion to do that. We'll certainly look into that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next one.
The green one, not the red one, because the red one is for cybersecurity.
Okay, green one, which is now the first one, if I understand. Is it correct that an update of the MMEL and flight crew data guidance material is scheduled? If so, when it is expected to be released? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, we're not talking about the guidance material. We have regular updates of the certification specifications. CS MMEL has already been revised, so to say, and as I mentioned, the MPA is currently out for comment for another few days. I don't know the exact date, but I think it's slightly less than a week. So, as I said earlier, please feel free to go on our website and comment. 2019, I believe second quarter, we will start regular updates of the other OSD CSs, based also on the experience gained so far and the feedbacks received from aircraft manufacturers, STC holders, and so on.
I don't know, Rob, whether that's a question for you or for Andrea. It's about the CVE qualification for OSD.
So unfortunately, currently EASA doesn't provide direct training for your design staff, being design engineers or CVEs. So the direct answer to the question is no. What for most DOAs counts is consider not creating a specific CVE function for OSD. Usually there's a related topic that you already know and do in your DOA, where you have competent CVEs that as an add-on can look at the effects on OSD as well and judge the way demonstration of compliance is made to the OSD. So I would encourage most of you, unless there's very specific cases, not to create a CVE function specifically and just only for OSD. Combine it with the competences you already have in-house.
Okay, and then we have one more question on the OSD topic, which is maybe for you, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you for this additional question. Should the flight crew data address the operational approval level of an aircraft, like ILS, LPV, etc., or only aircraft handling? Well, actually, none of those, in the sense that we have to be clear here, because there's always there's quite often a misconception around what the OSD is. So let's start from the basic regulation. OSD flight crew is under the basic regulation and under Part 21, 21A15D, if I'm not mistaken, the minimum type rating training syllabus for pilots. So we talk about training, as I mentioned earlier. Then, obviously, this concept is expanded quite significantly through the CS flight crew data, but most importantly, through the hooks and the references that we have created in the aircrew regulation for initial training, type rating training specifically for OSD, and in the ops regulations. So to answer the question, the OSD does not determine the capability of the aircraft. The aircraft is certified under pure airworthiness requirements on what it can or cannot do. The OSD addresses training elements related also to specific type of operations, like low visibility or steep approaches or IPV and so on. And it can determine, when so prescribed under the ops regulations, credits between variants or between different types, for example, for this training. So this is the big strength. But we're always talking about the usage of the aircraft, training of pilots to fly the aircraft, also for specific type of operations.
Okay, we got already close to half an hour for the one topic. We have 3 more topics in the agenda, and LOI was nearly as popular as OSD, and I think we could now switch to the LOI, the practical implementation. And Leo is there to give you maybe some initial feedback before we start the question session on where we are with this project.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Leonardo Capacci. I'm the regulation officer in charge of the activity related to the new LOI concept, including the MPA for containing MCGM to Part 21. So regarding the advanced application of the new LOI concept, we started in June 2016, right after the publication of the opinion 07-2016. And at the beginning, we started with 10 volunteering DOAs in cooperation with the ASD. And then we advertised at any opportunity this activity in order to get more volunteering DOAs. The scope of this advanced application was to test the new guidance, and particularly we mean the certification memorandum on LOI, which has been published last year, this year, sorry, in January, for external consultation. But we had an initial draft already available in June, and we started this advanced application in June 2016. So far, we have 25 volunteering DOAs covering more or less all the areas of the industry. We have DOA, all of them are DOA holder, of course, but we have TC holder, we have STC holders, we have general aviation manufacturers, and we have also engine manufacturers. It's difficult to say how many pilot projects we received so far because every day the number changes. However, more than 180 I've counted, and more than 100 have been already completed, meaning that in more than 100 cases we have already determined the LOI. What else I can add to this introduction? This advanced application will virtually be considered as closed, as completed in December, because in December we have a workshop with these volunteering DOAs where we will share our experience, and we will take the improvement needed on the guidance material, meaning the certification memorandum on LOI, but also we have an AMC which has already been consulted through the MPA last year. And we want to ensure that all the improvements identified during this advanced application will be included in this material. Thereafter, we can say that virtually the advanced application is closed because we will start the implementation phase. We are close to the publication of the new Part 21, so we will more focus on how to comply with the requirements. The goal of this advanced application, as I said, was to test this guidance material, but also to train ourselves to familiarize on both sides, on the industry side, but also on the agency side. And in order to sustain this advanced application, we trained already all our PCM experts and DOA team leader. We had 28 sessions of LOI training within the agency, but also we trained NAAs, and so far we have more than 90 experts from all NAAs already trained on this concept. And on top of that, next year, after the publication of the Part 21, we will organize at least 5 roadshows through all Europe in order to explain not only the new LOI concept, but also all the other changes which have been introduced by the opinion 2016-07.
Thanks for this introduction. As quite a number of the companies that take part in this advanced application process are actually here, it would also be good to get your feedback.
Good afternoon, Mark van Dam, Specialist Aviation Services. We used LOI on a recent project. It made our life, or it made the communication a lot better. It made it a lot clearer which documents we had to submit to the agency for review and which we didn't. The only caveat is that it wasn't clear to us when our proposal for LOI was actually accepted. So the communication back to that an LOI, say level risk class 1 has been accepted, wasn't very clear, and as a result we did upload certain documents to SEPIAC, which later on we're then told, oh, we don't want to see them. So it's not a big problem, but it would be great if we got a quicker, faster feedback on whether our LOI proposal is actually accepted.
Yeah, thank you for the positive feedback. Let's say so far we are in the advanced application phase, and also on our side we need to be fully I would say fully trained and fully familiar with this new concept. I can understand that it could happen that we have not notified quickly enough our level of involvement. However, according to the new concept, as soon as we will accept the certification program, we will notify our level of involvement. This is a step of that phase. So once the certification program is accepted, the agency will also notify the level of involvement. And this should be done, will be done when the Part 21 will be in force. We will be done in a written format. Can be an email, or can be through SEPIAC, or can be using a CAI, or whatever means which is written and can be used.
Good afternoon. Tony O'Kill from Phoenix Aerospace in the UK. We used the LOI process on a project recently, which I will say was very positive. The one good thing that came out of it was on the outputs, or the input, sorry, EASA declared a time response to give the answers and a certification. And that was given as 10 working days. You did it in 7. So that was very useful to see that. We did it through CPIAC. There is a negatives on CPIAC because there are still 3 open discussions on our CPIAC portal with an STC that was issued 6 weeks ago. So I think there's a little bit of a tie-up needed between what we do through LOI and the feedback that needs to go back into CPIAC to close those items down.
Okay, thanks for that feedback. Yes, Andreas.
My name is Andreas Germann from Lufthansa Technik. We have had 2 pilot projects, one quite complex cabin modification and one less complex STC, and I must say generally it worked fine. We observed, of course, some front-loading of the discussion with the experts in the phase of the LOI definition with the CDIs, but we do have the faith that in the fact that it will be a positive outcome at the end, that this front-loading of the discussion in an early phase of the project will have a benefit in itself when compared to the existing or to the old world, where the discussions take place quite late in the game, which in a complex project generally is more cumbersome and more ineffective than having the discussion up front and knowing where you go. Combined to that, I have a question to the advanced application. If we have an SDC that just now is started, should we continue to advance apply LOI principles, or is the project phase now, the advanced application phase now closed, and we should just wait until the thing comes into force?
I would recommend to continue using the advanced application concept, the new LOI concept, because this will allow you to further familiarize with the new LOI concept, and also on our side will allow that we continue our familiarization phase. I say that we will virtually close the advanced application in December, because in December we have this workshop, and you are invited, I know, and then we will discuss the result. This does not mean that we will stop using the new concept. This means that we will summarize the result, and we will discuss whether we can further improve the guidance. That was the meaning of my sentence.
Thank you, Leo.
One specific question from me to all those who attended the implementation phase is, we introduce this for the first time to test a concept before it's actually in the rule, and also to validate whether the concept as we perceive it is working properly. Is this something that you found useful, or do you think it's more a burden and you're seen as guinea pigs and don't see the real benefit for yourself?
Yes, we were guinea pigs, and therefore certain things you need to work out on the fly, but it was very useful to actually try something before it gets hard law, or so. Yeah, please do again.
Yeah, I also certainly agree that this approach is appreciated, and I think that's very useful. However, we need to see what the outcome in the regulation is, or in the AMC material. So let's talk again when the hard or soft law is created and finalized, to which extent it really appreciates the experience we have gained through this process.
I think that regarding the MC material will be very close to what you have already seen in the certification memorandum. Actually, we have already consulted the first MC last year, and there are some improvement on the text, of course, because we got comments from stakeholders, but the main concept is unchanged, and there are no significant changes to the procedure that you already know.
We got one late question on OSD, which is now displayed on the screen. Maybe Andrea, you can answer to that.
Yes, the question is, please comment on guidance material 21A93, quote, A, changes to the TC that only include a minor change to type design, do not have an effect on OSD. I don't have the text in front of me. I believe it says do not have an effect on OSD except for MMEL, probably. It's what we were saying before. So we have established conventionally that major change to the design can potentially impact any of the OSD constituents that exist for the original product. So an assessment has to be made. a minor change to design by, again, by convention, can only impact MMEL. So I'm not sure it is complete, the way it's written there, but we can check. Yeah, I hope that answer. Yes, Rob is confirming that.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea.
Except MMEL.
Good. Any other questions on LOI and the advanced application phase? And as you heard from Leo, there's planned a workshop to exchange the information.
It's 18th of December, but we have only invited those DOA which applied already the new concept. So it's not open for everybody. However, I think we can share the minute of meeting of that event in the website, I think.
Yeah, I would just like to make a remark on LOI. Yesterday we've learned that we're expecting the rule to be entering into force around about April next year. I think the time is ripe for everybody to start thinking about how LOI should be implemented into your procedures, to start thinking about how you comply with the new rule and use the material that's already available. We have the opinion that drives the change to the rule, and I'm looking at Leo, but as far as LOI is concerned, we don't expect big changes to come out.
No, we have seen some changes in the wording, but the technical content is unchanged. The Commission improved the layout, but didn't touch the technical elements.
Yes, thank you. So you have the opinion, you have the first AMC-GM, that is the bulk of the AMC-GM that the agency is going to produce. And as Leo already said, it's not going to be changed drastically due to the comments we received. We've incorporated all the comments, but there's no changes in the concept. And we have a CM draft that can be useful as well to start thinking about it. And then please do have a conversation once you have formed an idea about how you want to implement LOI. Start having a conversation with your DOA team leader so that we can all be on the same page and we use the time that we're giving on the implementation period as useful as we can, so we have a successful implementation of LOI. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions on LOI, then I would say we go to the next topic, which was cybersecurity. And Cyril joined us to respond to your questions, and we have already one, which is the status of the rulemaking task.
So the question is on rulemaking task on airworthiness cybersecurity. I can extend a bit because in fact we have two rulemaking tasks on cybersecurity. One on the airworthiness update of the airworthiness specification, so CS25, CS29, CSE, and so on. So I will start with this one. It's based on ARAC report on aviation information security protection. This ARAC report was developed 2 years ago, a bit more than 2 years ago, with the industry, and the conclusion was to integrate the special conditions that we are using today to address cybersecurity for aircraft into the specification. So the status on that is that it's almost ready. The NPA is almost ready for publication. I think the objective is to have it ready for first quarter of next year. Then it will be available for comment. The next rulemaking task, I think it's a bit more wide in terms of scope. It's rulemaking task 720 about aviation information security, and it's about organization. And I think this one could have a more impact on DOA. It will be about DOA, design organization, production organization, maintenance, and so on. It's basically to have information security management system either integrated to your existing safety management system or a dedicated one. This one, I think, for the objective will be end of next year for the publication. I would also invite you to read, probably you already did, Article 4 and Article 88 of the new basic regulation that is entering into force in September. It's just clarify the fact that airworthiness has to take into account cybersecurity. And also there is a lot of elements to consider when you have interaction between safety and security. They have to be taken into account. So that's the trigger for all this rulemaking task we have today. But for airworthiness, I think if I go back to the core of the question, it will be ready for consultation beginning of next year.
Any other questions on cybersecurity? Okay, we had one more topic, which was CS23 Amendment 5. I don't know whether Bodewijn joined us. Ah, there you are. So while Bodewijn is on his way to the stage, maybe you can think about the topics you would like to raise regarding CS23 Amendment 5.
Well, since you invited me, I'd like to take the opportunity to briefly give you a little bit of update. You had a side meeting on CS23 Amendment 5 anyway. I just returned from a week ASTM meeting where we're working on the next AMC to CS23, because what you'll see in the future is not an amendment to CS25, so we hope that Amendment 5 will stay along with us for quite a while. But you'll find regular updates on the AMC, and that those updates on the AMC will be primarily introducing new means of compliance that are developed in ASTM. And ASTM is really, the abbreviation is a bit outdated, but it's Aviation Sharing Technical Matters, I guess. This is where the latest developments will come from. And ASTM is developing a new package that they'll have ready just before the end of the year. And our plan is to introduce it into our AMC, aiming at the second quarter next year. So that will be the first update to the AMC to CS23, bringing all new kind of things in there. So that is the arena where we really are trying to make progress. In contrary to the other old AMC, where from CS23, we point to the old revision of CS23 and also to the old revision of CSVLA. But that is really a kind of a static arena of AMC that we kept in there just to make sure that we make a connection with the previous system and to reduce the administrative burden. But the future will be in new standards developed in consensus with a lot of stakeholders. To give you a little bit of a flavor of that, I used to be the rulemaking officer in charge of a number of CSs. So if you look at the resources that were available for CS23, you're looking at maybe 10–15% of a person, while in ASTM we have now 306 participants working on standards, which is quite an improvement. So I hope we can do a lot more. Actually, we need to do a lot more, because technology is evolving quite quickly, and this is the way how we can tackle still some kind of standard approach even when new technology starts to surface. So I hope to show early next year with the next revision of the AMC that we are moving a bit closer to the technological development. So stay tuned and stay involved. That would be my plea. If there are any questions, I'm available. Now's the time to ask. Thank you.
Ah, there's one question. Thank you.
Hello, Marco Festa. Just one question. Did you consider the amount of work in the initial phase of developing the certification program for CS23 Amendment 5? Because the ELOE enhanced the time for creating the certification program and discussing it. And also the AMC definition for CS23 Amendment 5 requires a lot of discussion. So this time may be perhaps longer and require greater effort for the companies.
Well, we didn't fully anticipate fully the administrative challenges that have surfaced with the new concept. You're absolutely sure that, especially at the early stage now, after the Amendment 5, developing the cert plan with all the options that are available in the AMC is not as straightforward as it used to be. It's partially the price we have to pay for increasing flexibility. On the other hand, we do acknowledge that this is an issue that we have to look into. This is also one of the discussions we've had in the ASTM week last week, because if we allow ASTM to grow into a wide and wild variety of standards, the challenge for you to find the right AMC to a objective rule is going to be more and more difficult. So we try on the ASTM side to also organize it more logically, which would make your life easier. On the other hand, and that's maybe a very personal comment, I really like the fact that the new CS23 Amendment 5 has encouraged people to come with designs we had never seen before. So it did open the door for new designs. Yes, they are not standard anymore. There might not be AMC available for those very novel designs, but I'm very happy that we see them. And we'll have to work on making sure that the administrative downside is not going to overwhelm the positive side of flexibility.
Was there another question? One on Slido, which is whether the changes that we introduced for CS23 will later on also be applied to CS27.
Well, I'm not directly involved in that. I know that discussions are ongoing, and definitely people have been looking at the CS23 reorganization with the angle of light rotorcraft. So it could be that there is an evolution in that direction too. We have a lot of challenges in that respect. The new designs are so different that we really have to make up our mind how we can best accommodate those in our system. So will it be a objective-based CS27? I don't know. I really doubt it. I mean, the new designs are not really a CS27 anymore. They are a CS 27.9 or 24.8, whatever you want to call it. So the old CS structure might not be appropriate for the future, but definitely we're looking into the possibilities of more objective-based certification specifications supported by means of compliance.
We got one more question whether the CS23 Amendment 4 can or cannot be used still. Any comment on that, Bodewijn?
Of course. If you look at the newest CS23 Amendment 5, or actually if you look at the AMC do that CS, you'll see that CS23 Amendment 4 has moved into a means of compliance to Amendment 5. Because of all the details that were in CS23 Amendment 4, it was suitable to call that AMC. However, of course, you can use that if the aircraft fits in the scope of what was covered in CS23 Amendment 4. And we all know that also CS23 Amendment 4 had its gaps that need to be filled by, for instance, special conditions. The latest or fairly recent TCs where Amendment 4 was used had a lot of special conditions to close those gaps, sometimes even up to 100. Those special conditions are not included in that AMC if we just refer to the clear CS23 Amendment 4. So when you consider to use CS23 Amendment 4 as an AMC, please bear in mind that there could be gaps that need to be closed with special conditions from the past that we now use as AMC. So it's really an administrative trick to connect to the old system, but it is in a lot of cases incomplete, and the special conditions that were used in the past again will be applied, but now as AMC.
Okay, thanks Bodewijn. As we don't have more questions,